Hello everybody, my name is Cat on the Go, and we are back in the world of Minecraft for another Minecraft video. I have been doing just a wee bit of fixing up in here, and I got my second piece of iron. So I don't know why I went up with just one of the pieces of iron, because I can't do a whole lot with just one piece of iron. But got it. Yeah, so I was just doing some improvements around the housey area, and I ran into the second piece of iron, so yeah. Now, of course, the water is going to be messed up, and I'm going to have to fix the water because I don't like messed up water, and it's going to be another time because that's going to be a lot of, like, up and down and up and down and up and down with the water. Just trying to fix the water because I am anal about my water. But yeah, so I've got 2 pieces of iron, so I can make a iron shears. Well, the only type of shears. I can make some shears, and then we can, unless you're playing modded, and if you're not playing if you're playing like if you're playing modded, it's different, but everything's different in modded, so you know. Potatoes, potatoes. I'm just starting to put in some upgrades to the cave, and we are going to improve that. I think that will be the entrance, or there might be like a secondary, I don't know. It's still early days. We don't have to have everything planned out yet, but I do need to shear some sheep and then decide on what color I want the bed to be. I think blue, mostly because the blue wool was right there. Because no, it just, someone said this about the new bed color being like default white. It just looks like a hospital bed, and I don't need to be thinking about hospitals right now with all this craziness going on. All this fucking coronavirus news. Ah, don't kill me. Oh crap. Seriously, don't kill me. I have so much to live for. I just made a bed. Okay. And now we hide until morning because I don't have any bloody wood. Okay. I'm gonna put a light in here, and I'm gonna see the sun. I can't. It is still very dark. Okay. I didn't start my timer, but I'm gonna head off and do nothing until morning happens, and then I'm gonna go and I'm going to find some light. I'm gonna find some wood. I'm gonna chop down some trees, and we're gonna be good. I'm just gonna stay there until morning, so I'll see you then. There was a sizzle. There was. Now I have to find where I was because not happy with that. Not remotely happy with that. I can't stay still, can I? Is that my place over there? Should be able to tell from the top because I have growing stuff growing on the roof. Oh, and there's a mounted jockey. You don't see that every day. And I'm going to die soon. And I'm going to die. I did not die, but I'm going to die very soon, which is fine. I'm just going in circles. Okay, so I'm here. There's the beehive. That's where I started. Okay, everything's floating in very slowly. Okay, I think let's try going this way. See, this is why I thought I should say close to spawn. So try to see where I am in relation to everything else. So let's get some height. Let's get down to business and get some height. Maybe I will find where the fuck I am. There is mushrooms over there, but I don't remember seeing, but I don't know where I am supposed to be. I might die, but I will at least have an interesting time. And I'm not gonna die up here. I mean, my things might fuck me. It's kind of weird because I tried so hard in my last Minecraft series not to swear because I don't know. I thought I swore too much. To some people, I probably still swear too much, but you know, fuck them. In all seriousness, I don't think I swear incredibly often, but I do swear more than I swore when I was younger. But when I was in high school, I almost never swore. That being said, I never stopped swearing in my head. So it was just a constant string of F-bombs that made up my every single sentence in my head. Because I was frustrated. Constantly. Now I say them out loud, and I say them very little. And not nearly as much in my head. It's just because I'm not nearly as stressed out. Okay, I don't think that's the right tunnel. Okay. So we didn't find home, but we did find something very interesting. Now I'm dead again. Okay, so that was an abandoned mineshaft. So that, although it is not home, is interesting. So I'm gonna go like that way, I think, is the correct direction. Honestly, I don't know. Because I was being dishonest before, I guess. I'm just really lost. And honestly, it's just kind of like a filler word. It's like. There's a lot of filler words, and it's like filler. Filler words are really a cultural thing, I feel like, because the filler words mean different things in different culture. If you feel my drift. My drift has a feeling. It is anxiety. That is how you feel my drift. Do you feel my drift? The drift of anxiousness. Anxious tension constantly radiating off me. Timer even going? It is going. And I am just blabbing. But yeah, so I think it's really interesting to find out what filler words are for different, like, places. Because every culture in every different area. So I feel like different places have different filler words. And this isn't something I've, like, researched at all because, I don't know, it's a little bit of a harder one. But, you know, I feel like it's one of those things that you can do, like, cultural studies on. The way, like, different cultures use filler words. So, like, in California, which I know isn't, like, specifically a culture, but it has its own, like, it has its own lingo. For us, for people in California, and I live in California, filler words are stuff like, and, but, is another good one. A lot of people use, because it's a thought. It's just, it's not even something that's thought of something. It's just what people use to fill in that space that's missing between words when you're thinking. Because often if we don't think about it, we feel like we have to fill in space with something. So that's where the likes, the the, you know, and, you know, just a lot of filler words so that you don't seem to not know what you're talking about, because people take thinking as not knowing what you're talking about. So if you continue to rattle, even if that rattling contains a lot of filler words, people, like, there's a presumption that people will think of you as a smarter person. But the truth of the matter is that your intelligence isn't correlated with how quickly. Speed isn't the only mark of intelligence. Someone who's the fastest to get at an idea might also be the wrongest. Someone that takes time to consider what they're talking about might know more of what they're talking about. And the idea of, like, being... There was this quote I heard a while ago where it was like, I doubled my brain capacity. And the person replied, "Oh, are you smarter?" And the person replied back, "No, I'm dumb faster." Which I think is interesting, because it's the idea of, like, speed doesn't necessarily make you smarter. It just makes you come out with the answer quicker. So someone can definitely, like, and also, like, your first reaction is usually just the gut reaction. I really can't find where I was before. But I really should. I shouldn't restart again. Anyway, but your first action is usually a gut reaction and not a well thought out, like, response. So usually if you only think in, like, gut responses to stuff, then you're going to be wrong, because your gut isn't always right. Like, instincts tend to betray us because they're all based on very basic things, and it's all like the, like, fraction fallacies. Like, our brain thinks in fallacies because most of the time, like, quick thinking works, but quick thinking doesn't always work. It's like the idea of, like, thinking fast and slow, and sometimes thinking fast is useful because you need that type of fast response, but most of the time in our day-to-day life, we don't need a fast, prompt response. What we need is a well-calculated response, which is the idea of slow thinking. So that's kind of where the idea of thinking fast and slow comes from. It's the idea of, do you need, at this moment, is it more useful, is it more insightful to have a thought out, considered answer, or do we need an answer right now? It's like the difference between buying toilet paper at the store versus buying a new car. When you buy a new car, you need to really make sure you get the right car, because you're spending a large amount of money. There's a lot of consequences if you choose incorrectly. But when you buy, say, a roll of toilet paper at the store, there's a lot less consequences if you say buy incorrectly, because the most consequence you'll get is you bought the wrong toilet paper and you'll have to buy a different type of toilet paper later. But you have that new knowledge that, oh, that wasn't a good brand, I won't do that in the future. But that's a lot more costly to do with something like a car or a motorcycle, because buying the wrong thing might be, a year, 2 years, several months, whatever it is for your position in life, worth of work or savings or inheritance if you're buying a car from or it could be, and with a car or something like a house, that's not something you're going to replace very often, especially a house. But even a car, you're not going to be replacing a car fairly often, or most people wouldn't want to be replacing a car very often. So you'd like that reliability because of the consequences of what would happen if you don't have that reliability. And that all goes back to that idea, it's so interesting because one of the big thoughts that I always have is just everything in life, all of your things in life are based and filtered through your economic situation. Because someone with more money, someone with a higher economic standard, someone who is very rich, might consider a car a very little thing. But someone who is very poor or impoverished will consider a car an extremely big thing. And it also depends on where you live. If you live in the countryside, then a car is an essential. And if you live in a place with bad, public transit, a car is an essential. But if you live in a city, or if you live in a very urbanized environment, like a big city, or even a small city but somewhere with really good public transportation, then a car might be less of a big deal, less of a very important thing, or it even might be a disadvantage. Not a complete disadvantage, but it'd be a socially taxing thing to own. So say if you live in New York or Berlin, and you live in an apartment building, it's going to be very difficult for you to own a car because you need to pay for the money to rent a parking spot, and you'd need to wait in traffic to use it. And in those situations, it might be more socially economically viable to not own a car and to instead own just a Muni, not Muni, because Muni is only SF, but, own a municipal transit pass, so a monthly pass where you pay a flat rate, and you get to use all the public transportation. Or it might be useful to own a bicycle because the streets are too crowded, or, as in a lot of European cities, the streets are urbanized, so there's no cars allowed on them. And it's just so interesting because, the more you go up the economic economic situations, the different considerations come to owning a car. Because someone who is, someone who's very poor, and even not poor or rich differences, but because there's more levels to something than just poor and rich. Someone who's lower class, again, someone who is lower middle class, they might save up for their first car, or their parents might buy them a very cheap first car. My sister, got her first car when she was 23, I think. And my parents bought it. It was a 25-year-old car, and it was a Craigslist car. It was relatively cheap. But they bought her a car, and that in itself is, you know, a big thing. And I have friends that their parents bought them a new car when they were, you know, 18. When they were of age to own a car. But I know other people that had to buy their first car. And some of that is socioeconomics, that, like, their family couldn't afford a new car, or, and some of it is budgeting, because their parents can't budget a new car. But some of it is, like, responsibility. Like, they don't think they think you should have the responsibility to buy your own car, which in itself is based on, like, the socioeconomics of, like, what they value, because it might be based on the fact that they were poor growing up and therefore think that because they bought a car that you should buy your own car too. Or it might be based on the fact that, like, my friend who had a car from a younger age lived in an area where the ability to drive a car was much more needed than, say, my sister or other people that I know that were never given a car, because they always lived in an area where owning a car was not necessary, if not at times a disadvantage, because it made other things in life difficult. Which I think is interesting. But it's the whole idea of, like, what you value and, like, where you are is so intertwined with this, like, complex web of not only what you own, but what you... It's all connected. So, like, where you live affects what you own, affects, like, who you see, and it's just all... And then there's just the layer of racism along everything that makes everything harder for people that are considered non-wanted by society. It's not even that, but people who are considered by portions of society to be less worthy. But that's also very much intertwined with classism, and it's just so much. And then there's the idea that, like, it's just so complex and interesting, but, you know, it all goes back to, like, the idea that even, like, you can't make... It's hard to make examples of things in the world, because to make an example, you're intrinsically, especially making, like, money examples, because you're intrinsically showing where you lie on the pyramid, because for something that is cheap to me is something that's very expensive to someone else, and something that's expensive to me might be cheap to someone else. So for me, a car is a very large in this, at my current place in time, unaffordable thing. I would not be able to buy a car. I don't have that type of finances. But for someone who, for say, grew up in a very wealthy, or even modestly more wealthy than me, that might be an easy thing for them to, like, have and to own. But that's all just... And then to someone else, owning a car might be even more extreme than it is to me. It just might be something that no one they know has. Because in certain places, a car isn't only just an expensive thing, it's a unattainable thing. Like, not necessarily... And that's, like, on the other extreme. And for others, it might be, like, a luxury that you see. And that's with everything, like a cell phone. Like, a cell phone in America is something that, although it is very expensive, it is an expense that most people will take, or will find a way to take. So people will, like, try to make deals with, like, carriers or do other things. But in a lot of places in the world, a cell phone isn't only an expensive thing, it's an unattainably expensive thing. And even when they find a way to get a cell phone, in a lot of countries, there's only plans that do like per gig, like you can only buy prepaid, or you can only get it. It's very expensive to even operate a phone. And, you know, a family or a community might have one cell phone. And in that case, this, you know, that device is life-changing for them because they can do things that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Which I find fascinating because, like, depending on where you are, a cell phone is such a different thing. Like, in America, you know, there's all those ads like, oh, you don't want your family to fight over a single phone. And then there's these people out here that are, you know, making do with, like, this whole household has, you know, this whole village has one phone. And it's just, it's not considered a weird thing for them just to have one phone. It's just, it's considered a luxury to have that one phone instead of a weird thing to only have a one phone. Which is just an example of privilege that we don't think about a lot. Because privilege is a hard word to talk about because we don't like to think of ourselves with privilege. Privilege is a very dirty word, and I don't think it's necessarily as dirty as people like to imagine it. Like, it's not bad to have privilege. It's bad to flaunt privilege, and it's not necessarily like, but privilege will always exist. And the idea that we want to do is we want to make I don't know how to state this in a way that sounds correct in any sense of the word, but it's like privilege is something we have to understand from more of a just a flat out, like, this is a thing that exists in the world and we need to understand it because it will always exist in some sense. There's always going to be a little bit because human nature, like, we can't live in a privilegeless world. But if we understand privilege and we're able to, like, I feel it all comes back to the basic idea of respect and understanding, and just if we understand each other and we understand our world better and we understand why inequality happens and where, I don't know, but it's just the idea of, like, we need to take care of each other. And I feel like a lot of the times we just don't. We don't take care of each other. And that's a shame because everyone, as Mr. Rogers said, everyone around you is a person who thinks and feels and loves. There's 7 billion people on this earth, and each of them is an individual. Each of them is worth love and is worth happiness. Everyone deserves a chance to love and be happy and to live a fulfilling life. And I feel like if we all just learned how to accept our differences and how to help each other more and how to not hurt each other, that the world would be just a better place overall if we just didn't hurt each other. But anyway, I'm definitely getting into weird categories, and my timer went off like 5 or 10 minutes ago. I've just been rambling on, but I wanted to get some semblance of my thought out before I just abruptly ended the video, because I wanted something to make sense of what I had said. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm doing a bunch of these at the same time or really close to each other, and I'm just going to be publishing them, you know, as I edit them, I guess. So I hope you had fun. I'm basically restarting, if you couldn't tell, because I can't find my old place. I just can't. I might find it eventually. If we do, it'd be really fun. You know, maybe when I get a map, I'll find out where it was. But until then, I'm going to make a spawn right next to my home. And hopefully we won't lose this one. I mean, a home right next to spawn. And, yeah. I hope you guys had a good video. I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers!